Welcome, everyone. Thrilled to have you at today's boot camp. I know it's going to take everybody a few minutes to get here and get settled. So as we are all arriving, if you would introduce yourselves, please, in the chat. I put a prompt in there asking you to introduce yourselves with your name, your learner's name, age, species, breed, any relevant info like that. And then how your button journey's been going so far. It might be it hasn't started yet. That's no problem. Or you might be advanced and looking for assistance. Whichever stage you're at, just let us know, and we can tailor today to what you all need and what will help you all most. So if you're just joining us, welcome. I put a prompt for you to introduce yourselves in the chat. I'll introduce myself in just a moment as well, once we give everybody a chance to get here. And we do see all of your notes when you sign up. This is just a great refresher for me if you did leave a note, and a way for you all to start to get to know each other as well. Welcome, Corinda. 3 cats, love it. Kenzizo and Toby. Actively modeling, fantastic, okay. Apart from a lot of accidentally pressed buttons, I haven't seen a consciously pressed button yet. Okay, that's all right, I'm not in a hurry. Oh, you get it. In the meantime, I'll try to gather as much information as possible myself. I love it. Definitely here to support, and we can talk about cats specifically, of course, too. I've got dog and cat learners that I've had success with in my home. But sounds like you're definitely on the right track, and those accidental presses absolutely count and are fantastic opportunities for you to continue modeling like you are. Catherine, welcome to you. Coco, Button, and Biscuit, 2.5-year-old guinea pigs. Oh, I love it. We've got some different species than usual. I love it. Really only just started, but Coco is taking to it quite well. I love it. And I'm sure you're familiar with button pigs. Love, love, love them. Anyone who is not familiar, they're on Instagram and TikTok both at button pigs, and they have guinea pigs. Unfortunately, some have passed, but they have been inspiring to so many. Fiona, welcome to you, and Oreo, 8 years old, only just started, first button day before yesterday, hasn't pressed it yet, no worries. Awesome, so the very beginning of your button teaching journey here. Allison, welcome to you, and Barlow, 4-year-old pup, skeptical of new experiences. Okay, good to know. Grateful for the help. We're starting right out of the gate. All right. Yeah, and as long as you're not seeing any fear with the button recording or the sound playing, something that's motivating, something exciting should be enough. If you are seeing discomfort starting really far away, you can always record the button to be quieter too, so that that's not as overwhelming for them. We have Calvin here with Jason, one of our community coordinators and moderators, fantastic member of our community. Thank you, Calvin. Always great to have you, and has had so much success with Jason. So fun to watch them on their journey. Suzanne, welcome to you, and Grace, 4-year-old cat. Cats are definitely representing today. Just started our button journey this week. Awesome, welcome. Rocio, welcome to you and your 3 dogs. Wayra, mother, she's 5, and then the 2 male twins, Rook and Leo, 3. Love it. Lila, welcome to you and your mini dachshund, Cortado. Buttons on the way. Good to know. And we'll talk about what you can be doing in the meantime. Don't worry. And this way you'll feel hopefully all set and confident, ready to go. Jinyi, welcome to you, and Pepsi, 3-year-old golden doodle. Just started FluentPet this week. Entry, welcome. Roman is 3-year-old Shih Tzu, 3 weeks in, okay. Has started pressing treat, puzzle independently without me asking. Awesome. However, the other words, kissy, pets, play, are used a lot less. Okay. Highly food motivated. I want to get him more interested in the other buttons. Good to know that there's nothing wrong with starting off what's interesting to them, building out from there. One of my cats, she is all about the food buttons. And so I just keep adding specific food buttons for her because she's interested in telling me when she wants a pumpkin meal topper, wet food, kibble, if she wants a training session, a puzzle, all of these things. And she has gotten to the point where she's coined her own phrase, wet food water, to refer to her freeze-dried food that has water added to it once it's been soaking for a little while. So while I personally am not as, interested in, an entire hex tile full of food, that's what she's interested in. And it's allowed her to have the confidence and the motivation to start not only combining buttons, but coming up with novel combinations too. And so for her to learn how to do that with her favorite subject right now, food, I love that, because then it will go to all the other things in their environment too. So you are well on track with having an interested learner at all. Keep up the great work. We'll talk more about all that though, don't worry. Oh, and Calvin, thank you for adding button pigs. Started with treat, they definitely know it. Treat is a fantastic starting button. And there definitely can be some boundary setting that we do around those extremely motivating buttons too. Claire, welcome to you and your Frenchies, Betty and Steve. Also have ducks. That is exciting. I don't know as much about ducks personally, but I know there's been chickens and guinea hens and a handful of others that have used the buttons. There's lots of farm animals and now zoo animals too who are learning how to use the buttons. Oh, Dora, welcome to you and Archie. We'll definitely talk a bit more about desensitizing our sensitive learners here. Yeah, and absolutely, Gentry. This is the things that I've learned, because my first learner, Jasper, who is a blind cat, here she is right here. She was all about those food buttons too. And at the time, we didn't advise starting with food button. Like, we explicitly advised starting against with food buttons. And so I was like, oh my gosh, well, she's obsessed. She's really motivated. Am I doing something wrong? But then it unlocked so many other deeper concepts and conversations with her. So yeah, that sold me. And now we recommend it to everybody through, all of the research that we've done. And real quick, before we jump ahead, if anybody has trouble seeing video or audio today, Chrome or Safari does tend to work best. Just let us know if you're having any troubles, and we will help you out in the chat or however we can. And this is being recorded. I'll show you where you can find a recording, and you usually will get a follow-up email as well. And on the agenda today are our introductions, which we're doing right now. Then we'll chat through the keys to button teaching, modeling, first words, and target training. This is an interactive discussion, so feel free to ask questions throughout in the chat. That way I can tailor it to what you all need, what's going to help you most. I'll share additional resources, and then we'll have time for more Q&A. So if it's easier to talk through any questions that you have, we've got time for that at the end as well. And we might be getting some live demoing here. Yep. And I do apologize if my screen is blurry. It's not a problem on your end. That is my rural internet that has been struggling lately. Here's little Miss Katie. So we'll do our introduction now. My name is Morgan Krug. I'm a certified dog behavior consultant. I've been working professionally with animals for going on 18 years now. I first started off the buttons about 4.5 years ago with Adora, my border collie, and Jasper, my blind cat. Unfortunately, Jasper has since passed, but as part of her legacy, I have Katie, who is a mostly blind 1-year-old cat now, and Bernie, who is eating right here, and will probably use the buttons here soon too. He is a one-eyed tuxedo boy, and he's about 1 year old as well. So Katie was over here pressing wet food and kibble, and possibly pumpkin. I was multitasking. That's where the connect buttons are really helpful, because then you get the text telling you what they were asking for. So we started talking about food buttons a little bit. Obviously, kibble is incredibly motivating for Katie. What is it, Katie cat? Katie want kibble and wet food? Yes. So the more you can talk to them all throughout the day, or all just whenever you're around, talk to them. Try to be consistent with the language that you're using. And we want to say yes to their button presses as much as we possibly can. So Katie asked for some kibble. So I'm going to tell her, yes, kibble now. Kibble. And so I've got her bowl right here. I've got kibble ready to go. I will probably wind up moving this up just so that there's less competition, but often rewarding at the board. That way they know that this is where the action happens. This is where the reinforcement is. Hanging out on or near the board is a great thing. And so having it set up in a central location that's easy for you to also get to model, easy for them to get to. And she is chowing down right here. So this is where I can not only model verbally and narrate with my voice, Katie eat wet food, and kibble and pumpkin. Wet food, kibble, pumpkin. And then we've got a pretty large board over the last 4.5 years and with 4 different learners using it currently. So the now button it was off screen, but being able to just grab, narrate with your voice and then reach and, model with your hands, your feet, whatever you can reach the buttons with, and then follow through. All right, let me reshare my screen. Figured I usually get at least a little bit of live modeling from my cats. I swear, the moment I say welcome to you all, they're like, oh, time for us to come put on a show here. All right. So a little bit more about us as a company. While Alexander Rossi and Christina Hunger were using buttons previously with their learners, FluentPet is the original button teaching system. So what does that mean? That means that our mission is to figure out how to teach dogs, cats, guinea pigs, and the other animals we share this planet with how to talk or an approximation of it. And we believe that pulling this off will take a village, a community that can develop and share button teaching tips and tricks and work together to discover the most successful button teaching approaches. So that's where you all come in. Our success in this mission entirely depends on your success with your learners. And the more of us who are able to progress, the faster we can figure out just how far all of this can go. And so you might be wondering, how far can all this go? We think this video really helps paint a picture of what's possible, and you'll probably recognize Alexis and Bunny.
The foundation for getting started with buttons is just a desire to connect. I can't remember the exact order, but I think she pressed stranger mad, and I was like, what does that mean? And then ouch paw. And then she came over to me and she put her left paw in my hand, and I was like, okay. And I looked between her toes and she had a foxtail stuck between her toes.
This was the stranger in her paw. She's got a mat between her toes.
It's not just Bunny who can do these amazing things. I mentioned my blind cat, Jasper. She was able to request medication multiple times after having an eye procedure with eyes and help or some combination of that. And it's not all medical related. There's lots of fun examples too. One of my favorite early ones was with Scout, a Catahoula mix, who would repeatedly combine water and bone. Took us a little while to figure out what she wanted, but it was ice cubes. And so she got an ice cube button and was able to advocate for herself in that way. So it really is amazing how creative they can be, even with a limited vocabulary. So with that in mind, how do we begin? Our very first step is modeling. And as I was demoing with my cats, even before you have your buttons set up or when you're not right near them, you can be verbally narrating. Talk to them all the time. Be specific with your language. Try to keep track of what you're saying, what other members of your household are saying. Obviously, though, we're not robots. Nobody's perfect. Don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. And for those of you who speak multiple languages, that's fantastic. You can avoid homonyms that way. Pick and choose whatever your learner is most used to hearing, or switch to be consistent about, which it is that you want it to be. Calvin has a great example. They realized while working with Jason, or that dad, as he was referring to himself, and mad sounded so similar that he wound up switching to refer to himself as Calvin on the board instead. But for those of you who speak multiple languages, maybe you can change it up that way. So it really can be an advantage. As long as you're consistent, that's the most important thing. And it doesn't have to make sense to anybody outside of the household necessarily either. Although that can make for some pretty long pet sitting notes. All right, and since modeling is how we teach our learners what these concepts mean, early on, try to pick buttons for which you can say yes to their presses. We want to capture their excitement and their enthusiasm around the board and teach them that this is an amazing tool that they now have available to them. So it's 3 simple steps while they're first learning. First, press that button. Something that you can, again, immediately say yes to and frequently follow through on throughout the day. If you can model 10 to 15 times throughout the day, fantastic. They tend to pick it up that much faster as a result. Then step 2 is follow through. Show them the meaning of the word by making it happen. And then step 3 is repeat. Go back to step 1, repeat, repeat, repeat. It's a lot of repetition, especially early on while we're helping them understand that the buttons have a consistent meaning each and every time. Oh, wow. And so Katie wants more. Katie wants more wet food, kibble, and pumpkin. All right, I can get you more. Yes, more soon. And so I do want to show you real quick. Katie is actually laying down to press right now. She is so, hi, pets. Assuming you have pets. So they can lay down, they can use their paws. Bernie, my one-eyed guy, he is all about flopping on the board, pressing with his shoulder in order to activate the button. And part of why I muted myself during Alexis's video is because he was pressing the creek button repeatedly. He wants for us to go for a creek adventure walk right now. Obviously, that cannot happen right now. So think about what buttons you can put down and say yes to 10 to 15 times throughout the day. Creek was not one that we started off with. That was a more advanced button, a more advanced concept that we added because it is difficult to say yes to more than once per day. Sometimes it's too much to say yes to even once. So that was a more advanced concept that we waited a bit longer to add so that he wouldn't get as frustrated, so that I wouldn't get as frustrated hearing, creek all day and having to tell him later. Whereas Katie, very, very food motivated, obviously, hummus, asking for kibble, wet food, pumpkin, these sorts of things. I can still say yes to feeding her multiple times throughout the day. And I can even use diminishing returns where I'm just giving her a single kibble and have it be that simple if need be. All right, so let me reshare my screen. And I want to show you another example of modeling. So this is Kelly with her learner Delmer. This is the first 24 hours that they had buttons down in their household. So you'll see just how much repetition she's doing. And know that she's talking to them all throughout. It would just be too long of a video to show all that.
Puzzle. Outside. 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 Puzzle. Outside. Pets. Puzzle. Outside. Outside. Pets. Puzzle. Puzzle.
Yes. Puzzle. More puzzle?
Puzzle.
Beautiful
Puzzle.
accidental press
Outside.
there.
Outside. Outside. Puzzle. Outside. Puzzle. Outside. Outside. Outside.
So again, it's a lot of repetition, especially early on while we're helping them understand that the buttons have a consistent meaning each and every time and a consistent outcome as well. And that's where those accidental presses are so helpful for them to realize that they can activate the button themselves and that, again, it has a consistent meaning and outcome each time. So keep reinforcing those and consider yourself lucky anytime you are getting those accidental presses. And so I also have a note at the bottom of the screen here that the speed at which our learners begin to press has no bearing on their long-term success. So even if you've been modeling for weeks now and your learner's not yet pressing, that's okay. It might be frustrating, don't get me wrong, but it doesn't mean that they're not intelligent. It doesn't mean that you're doing anything wrong. They just might need a little bit more time to realize the point, to see the use of the buttons for them. So keep at it, keep modeling. The more frequently you can do it, the better. The more exciting, the more valuable, motivating to them, the better as well. So either modeling just whenever you can, all throughout the day, evening, whenever you're home, but also you can be doing some rapid modeling. So here's Kelly with a different learner, Nushka. And in this case, they're working on a snack button. So again, food buttons tend to be very motivating for a lot of learners. And with this snack button, we're able to reinforce quickly, and then Nushka's looking for more. So we're able to rapidly model, rapidly pair the button, the sound, and the food appearing. And notice that Kelly's even pushing the button with the treat to really drive home, hey, this food, it's coming because this button is making a sound. And Kelly's reinforcing a little bit away from her, a little bit away from the button, so that Nushka is orienting back towards her, focusing back towards her. And it gets to the point where if you pause, if you wait, a few seconds in between pressing, sometimes the learners will start to nose it or start to paw it or try to activate the button themselves. They're like, all right, how do I keep this going? Let's keep this fun. I love it. So for me, I'm modeling a ton for a new learner when they come into my household. And then as soon as they start trying to figure out how to activate it, that's when I might do some target training. We'll talk about that in a little bit too. But I might do some rapid modeling as well, just to continue building value, excitement, building their motivation for these sorts of things. Awesome. And Calvin is adding so many links in the chat. Thank you. All right. So how do we choose those first buttons and words? We want to set ourselves up for success. So as we talk about modeling frequently, saying yes as much as you can, think about what's going to be easier. Like, again, avoiding something like a creek button to start off with, unless you really are up for going to the creek as many times as your learner presses it, for example. And we want to start with 2 or 3 buttons, more than one, to help them understand that different buttons mean different things and have different outcomes, so that they're not just pushing and expecting interchangeably there. And our starting buttons ideally should be motivating and meaningful to your individual learner or learners, easy and convenient for you to model immediately and say yes to, and concrete or actionable. Because the soundboard itself is an abstract tool that they're learning how to use, we want the buttons to be easy to understand, easy to take action with, to help them understand the concept, to teach them a foundational understanding of the buttons, and then we can get more conceptual, complicated, advanced, that sort of thing. Does that make sense? Let me know if I can clarify anything as we're going through here. And let's chat through a few examples. So for my kittens, I began with eat, pets, and play. A general play for them, because they didn't seem to have a favorite toy or style of playing. But if you do know that your learner loves something in particular, an activity in particular, or a toy, something like that, maybe starting with that as the button instead. So for my border collie Adora, I did start with ball, because ball is life for her. And if you start specific, you can always get general. And if you start general, and again, we started with the general eat, but we've already gotten very specifically into all of the food options, as you've heard me model and Katie press, because that's what interests her. Let them talk about what's interesting to them. Katie's, actually, we're about 1 year into her button anniversary here. And she's starting to branch out a lot more, but food is how she gained her confidence. And she is happy to tell me and a pet sitter or whoever else exactly what it is that she wants. I think she's been able to regulate her diet, like her upset stomach with the pumpkin requests. So giving her that agency has really improved her life in significant ways. So the food buttons are on here as well, obviously. If it's hard for you to say yes to all the food presses, maybe thinking about something like puzzle that you can fill up and then they're working through. So it takes them longer to get to the end of it and to ask anything else. Hi, Katie. You hear Bernie? Yeah. Bernie wants outside. We're going to be inside now, okay? Inside now. And so again, just at least, even if you can't say yes to a press immediately, at least acknowledging it, talking through, letting them know when you can say yes to that press. And obviously they're a bit more advanced, so I don't have to follow through all the time. But when they're first learning, if you're on an important work call, it might be worth, either not having them around the buttons or using gating, an X pen, something like that to set you up for success. If you think that they're going to chew up the buttons, scratch them up, be destructive, anything like that, I wouldn't leave them unsupervised. And while you are supervised, or while they are supervised by you, remember that behavior is information. And if they want to chew up the buttons, that sort of thing, instead of having to, tell them no or be rushing over and it turning into a keep away game or a punisher or something like that, just give them a chew button. And then you can press chew and give them something that's appropriate instead and have it turn into a conversation, communication. Same with scratch. Have a scratching post nearby for your cats who want to dig their claws into the foam, and then give them a scratch button. I also have cardboard scratcher because that's Katie's favorite. If they press scratch, I might go over and I'll scratch a little bit too. We'll share the activity. I might add some catnip to the scratcher and reinforce and kind of encourage that way. So they're making good life choices there instead. So get creative. Think about what they're telling you with their body language, what they're interested in, and consider adding a button for it. Outside is on here as a common starting button. Yes, Kate. Oh, you want wet food water. Okay. Outside is on here as a common starting button, but don't feel pressured to start with outside. If you live on the 10th floor, it's not going to be easy and convenient for you to model. If your learner already has potty bells or their own pet door or something like that, same thing. They can already let themselves out. Like they already have a way to communicate that. So they're not going to be as motivated to do so with a button. So I would leave other forms of communication. If they already have potty bells, leave them there. We're not removing modes of communication, just like we're still honoring body language. We can still listen to the bell being rung. This just gives them a more specific and precise way of communicating what it is that they want. Pet/scritches or even brush is a popular one for a lot of cats. Though certain dogs too. I mean, they're all individuals. But think about some kind of physical affection button, something like that might be popular too. All right, so let me know if I can clarify anything for you all here. And in summary, 3 buttons, 3 hex tiles, go. Try not to agonize over it. You might not know where you want the board to live yet. That's okay. Bring it with you in different rooms until you know where the central location you want it to stay is. That's okay. You can move it around and then they should be great with a travel board. When we think about how they're learning the soundboard, it's the location of the buttons, typically motor memory, muscle memory. So as long as they have enough room to maneuver around the board, and a lot of them like to watch us while they press too. So thinking about the movement aspect, it's similar to us learning how to type on a keyboard. At first, you're going really slow. You're looking at each individual key and hitting just one at a time. But with time, practice, and patience, you can pick up your whole laptop and move it wherever, right? We get to that point with them with the soundboard too. But we don't want to be rearranging the individual buttons, just like if somebody were to rearrange all your individual keys on the keyboard, that would be overwhelming and confusing. But if, again, the whole laptop was picked up and moved, we handle that often. So it's okay to move the board around. Just try to keep the buttons in their same locations and go. If you have a really small learner, you might not need 3 hex tiles, but I try not to add more than 2 buttons per hex tile, even for my tiny kittens, probably even potentially for a guinea pig, depending on the space that you're going to have the buttons in, the size there, just so that they're not overwhelmed and having to discriminate between too many things. Yeah, so you've got a couple great questions here. So do you recommend outside over potty? My puppy already knows the word potty, but outside would be new to her. Excellent question. So in your case, because she already knows potty, it might be easier to start with that. But the advantage of an outside button is that you can use it to take her out to go potty multiple times throughout the day. You can also use it for play outside, for other activities outside. It's kind of that umbrella that a more general term. But to your point, if she knows potty, if that's valuable for you all to be communicating with each other, that might be the one to start with, and then you can add an outside button sooner rather than later. And so do you ever change the position of the buttons? Yes. Change is, I think, inevitable, especially when we think about this as a lifelong communication tool and skill. I've moved and had to move the entire board. I'm in the process of integrating the cat board into kind of the main board. I did teach my cats on an elevated surface to start. I think that that can be really advantageous in a multi-species household. That way my cats weren't worried about being stepped on or, bowled over by my enthusiastic dogs. I do have resource guarding in my household too. So for that reason, having the cats feel safe, elevated, up out of the way to learn the buttons was helpful. And then they can just kind of process and maneuver at their own pace. So I started that way, and then we've been integrating them together. And there were some duplicates that I am removing as well. So yeah, changing the positions. I like to go slow, and I like to model any change that I make. And I want to give my learners the option to be present when I'm making board adjustments too. It's their tool, right? I don't want them to come in from outside or wake up from a nap, come over and be like, whoa, everything looks different, smells different, feels different. So giving them the option to be present and then modeling any of those changes that you've made as well. And Allison asks, when you're unavailable to react, do you recommend removing the buttons? It's up to you. I personally find it easier to leave the buttons in place and just remove the learner, at least because in my case, even if they don't have the buttons, if there's something that they're trying to communicate that I'm getting barked at or pawed at or meowed at or rubbed against. So if I'm not able to react, typically my learner is either gated or crated or expend away in some capacity. And especially early on, if you're worried about them being destructive, I would remove the buttons. But they tend to learn, if you're out of the house and you don't have the Bluetooth or Wi-Fi ones, they learn, okay, if no humans around, I'm not going to get a response, and that tends to be okay. And then it's up to you if you want to reinforce in the middle of the night. Sometimes that's when cats in particular have their first presses, or an accidental press, especially in the middle of the night. It's up to you if you want to teach them, humans are not available to respond at that time, or if you want to jump up and reinforce, that works. I did have some really helpful times where one of my senior dogs, who's unfortunately since passed, but she made it to 16 and a half, and she had some incontinence as she aged. And so Jasper would tell me if Delilah had an accident in the house by trying to wake me up and let me know that she needed to go outside. So it's up to you. I find it advantageous for them to communicate at all hours because my guys know that, as long as it's not just a simple food request, there's usually a reason, and I'm going to get up and respond. And Catherine said, the other pigs will often tread all over the buttons. I had to put the buttons on this side of the cage or Coco doesn't use them. But that means when they come over for whatever it is, they clamber all over them. Okay. If I see it's a button pressed by another pig, I tend to ignore it unless I see Coco looking interested, and then I'll respond to it. Is that okay, or should I be trying to respond to it? It's literally random pressing multiple buttons as they walk on them, always squeezing past each other. Yeah, that is a challenge with the multiple learners. Generally, I try to err on the side of, reinforce as much as you can. But if you're getting multiple stepped on, yeah, that's really tough. Especially if you notice Coco listening into it, try to, but it might be worth trying to hold the other pigs a little bit more to account and see if you can't reinforce more intentionally. It might also be worth playing around with the layout a little bit. You obviously know far better than I do what makes sense with the cage and the layout and all, but maybe trying to arrange for a few less accidental presses. I've even seen where people have, made it so that there's like raised edges just so that there's kind of walkways in between so that it has to be a bit of a more intentional step, whether it's like 3D printing or, you just like set it in to foam or cardboard or whatever is safe. Probably not foam for guinea pigs, but yeah, it it may also be worth, if you've had a lot of mispresses and they're just kind of, or accidental presses, and they're just kind of tuning it out, sometimes it's worth re-recording a button or two, and that different sound coming out of it might cause them to do a little bit of a double take, and then you can take that opportunity to really show them like, yes, that's what this means. I did that intentionally with the help button because it was getting lost in other presses, and I wasn't responding as urgently as I should have. And so I changed the recording to be kind of like, help. It sounds really dramatic. And so getting creative about things like that. And for our sensitive learners, because I know that's come up a couple times, you can always record the buttons softer, record it further away, muffled. I've seen where people have like put it inside a pillowcase and then recorded it or something like that. So you can always adjust things that way and see if that helps any too. Oh, Corinda, that's so exciting. Having some success in the last 10 minutes, Toby. 4 times a toy right against the play button. Wow. If I had to go to the soundboard to throw his toy, I think this is the beginning. It sounds like it. That is so exciting. Keep up the great work. That is fantastic. And then, yeah, we'll talk about names in just a moment. So some of you might be thinking about abstract concepts or ready sooner rather than later for some abstract concepts. So I do try to wait until they're independently pressing first, but especially once you get to the point where you're like, I can't say yes to all these presses. That's a really great problem to have. You might be ready for some abstract concepts. But before you add them, I just want to emphasize the more things that you can put down on the board that you can say yes to, the better. We run the risk with adding abstract concepts like the all done, the no, the later, of demotivating them or frustrating them to the point where they're like, well, I don't want to use this board because I just get told no all the time. So the more things that you can put down to say yes to, the better. That's where something like that puzzle button can be really helpful. And then when we think about adding some boundaries so that we're not always saying yes, thinking about them in pairs so that you can be modeling these abstract concepts in contrast or in opposition to each other can help them get it a little bit faster. Because when we think about telling them like, yes, more eat now, with the yes, with the more, with the now, you're adding food, you can go outside, yes, more outside now. You can follow through and take a bit more action. In contrast, if they ask for outside or creek, in my case, and you tell them, no, creek all done, we can go later, and then nothing happens, that's a lot harder for them to understand. That's a lot more advanced of a concept. So that's why adding more and all done at the same time, so you can be modeling in opposition, and they can counter your all done with a more or ask for more of something else and get reinforced. Yes and no at the same time, now and later. Or if you wait a little while longer, now, soon, and later can be added together as well. So thinking about abstract concepts in this way and practicing narrating and just paying attention to kind of the categories that you are talking to them in and what kind of pairs together or might be worth adding or modeling together. Emotions as well. So thinking about a positive like happy at the same time as mad, sad, frustrated, a negative emotion like that. Safe versus concerned, friend versus stranger. That gets into kind of our people identity concept, that sort of thing. So excellent question. Do you recommend having their names and our names added? That would be 5 names. I understand. Very similar household here. That is not one that we typically recommend starting off with, but can be really valuable fairly early on as abstract concepts. The mom button was button number 4 for Katie. That was before I brought Bernie home, but that was button number 4. And the idea for that was because she had her eat button. She, loves her eat button, obviously, but she was pressing it when all of her needs were met. Her bowl was full. I had given her every single option. We had done a training session, and she's staring me down and pressing eat. And I realized that it was because she just wanted me to get up and come over to her and give her attention. There's nothing wrong with connection or attention-seeking buttons, so mom became that button for her. We also have hi. Other folks have yoo-hoo, hello, together. Some concept like that can be really valuable early on too. And then when I added Bernie's name button, I waited a while to add it since he was our latest, and it took me a while to name him as well. But he loves his Bernie button. He loves pressing his name. I wish I had added it sooner. So thinking about, what is going to interest them. He loves to press his name to get my attention. You heard Katie press his name to call him over to the board. They'll use it to request play with each other. I don't know if that's just because of the lack of visual that they use the buttons more with each other. I don't know. It's really cute though. So can be really advantageous to add them. I just would get some concrete concepts on the board first, get some independent presses first, and start practicing narrating the names. And Calvin already added a link for adding abstract concepts that should help too. And the other part of your question, they only know treats so far, but when I ask them, do you want a treat? And the problem is that they all react as one, as a pack. If one presses the button, all of them want to press. So abundance is great. I love reinforcing the whole pack, the whole crew, whenever anybody presses, whoever shows interest. I think that's great. It might be worth considering several treat buttons though. I have a few built-in redundancies for my crew as I'm merging boards together as well. There's multiple mom buttons, there's multiple food buttons, and there's multiple play buttons. That way I can have multiple learners pressing. There's not competition. And in your case, maybe there's no resource guarding and they're all just happy to share. And this might be a moot point in your case, but this might be relevant for everybody else too. So thinking about, can I have those redundancies built in, have that abundance so that it's not frustrating, there's not competition, and buttons equal fun for everyone. All right. And then I have a note at the bottom too, be on the lookout for our mentorship calls, which we'll talk about in our continuing education here in a bit, which are free kind of ongoing education about specific topics. I'll show you where to find all that in a little bit. All right, and I know there's a few more questions. Don't worry, we'll dive in. First, I want to talk a little bit about target training. If you're modeling consistently and you've chosen motivating buttons, often they will start trying to press, but not always. If they aren't yet pressing independently, that's okay. Target training can help them connect the dots and build that confidence, a sense of agency. It can also help with their accuracy, working on that eye-paw or eye-nose coordination or eye-shoulder coordination in Bernie's case, depending on how they prefer to press. Let them develop their style unless you've got a specific need, like planning a wall-mounted board, and you want them to be a nose presser as a result. But let them figure out their style otherwise. So we've got a few different links here. We've got the first one that is with Alexis and Bunny. Then we've got some cat-specific ones, but are also great for smaller learners. And they work specifically on getting a weight shift. A lot of times what we'll see with smaller learners, cats in particular, is them batting the button or at the hex tiles, which makes sense. When you think about how they want or how they interact with the world, they bat at things, right? They tap on things. That's normal. That makes sense. When in doubt, though, help them out. This is where, again, target training for that weight shift can be helpful. But if you see them staring a button down, being like, I know that I need to activate this somehow, but how? Or nosing at it or pawing at it, just help them out. Go over and press for them. If you can press the button itself, not their body, but the button itself, then they'll feel it move under their paw. They'll get to feel the tactile stimulation. They'll get to hear it. feel it vibrate potentially if it has the speaker in it, see it light up if it's a connect button that does that. So help them realize that they can do it and then follow through. When in doubt, help them out. If you have a learner that already knows how to do a high five, pull the button out of the hex tile. Make sure you put it back in the same spot, but you can pull it out of the hex tile, cue them to give you a high five, and then follow through. It can be a play button. It can be treat. It can be snack, food, whatever you want it to be. Just as long as you're willing to say yes to it, follow through. Same thing, if they know how to do a nose touch, cue them to do a nose touch and then follow through. Same thing, shake or paw, and then go ahead and play with them. So that can be a good shortcut. Just know that it's a different picture once it's being moved back into the hex tile. So don't be surprised if they don't get it when it's back on the flat surface. You might need to gradually ease it onto the floor if you are holding onto it and helping cue them to press that way. Thank you. And Calvin added those links in the chat. Let me share a few more resources with you all, and then we'll dive back into your questions and then any additional ones that come up. All right, so be on the lookout for a follow-up email, but community.fluent.pet has the most resources for you all, like 4.5 years worth of people's experiences so far. Under the welcome area, we have start button teaching, step-by-step instructions if you are the type that wants that. FAQs, if you've got a question in the middle of the night, you can always type it out and ask. There's usually people on from around the world, but there's a chance it was already asked and answered, and you don't even have to go through the effort of typing. So there's 41 different FAQs here. The Bootcamp section, just for folks like you who have been through Bootcamp. If it would be helpful to attend an upcoming session, if you have a household member that you'd like to attend, if you think of more questions and you'd like to come back, you're always welcome. Just let us know. Truly, we're happy to have you. So you can always RSVP for a future one, or you can switch upcoming to past, and that's where you can find the recording. So it's showing right now up. Obviously, the full thing will be posted after we finish today. I teased those mentorship calls. We have one starting in 12 minutes just after this with Janine, one of our guides who has had success with dog and cat learners as well. Feel free to RSVP. So that's getting to the independent presses. We've got surviving the spamming stage tomorrow. Help me pick my first words tomorrow. Target training, if you want a further deep dive on that, and some next week as well for cats and modeling as well. Resources. Here's links to those paw targeting tutorials, that learning center as well, and a soundboard planning tool if you're the type that likes to have an idea of where things are going. Soundboard planning tool. And you can always scroll through resources. There's tons of great things. Calvin has posted amazing videos with Jason. So appreciate everything that he shared. Under discussion as well, there's updates on deals and got things from some of our mentorship and bootcamp instructors as well here. And under chat, this is where you all can share your updates, wins, questions, and yeah, we're happy to assist there as well. One last thing I want to show you, show off your soundboard. If you're looking for inspiration, there are as many different soundboard layouts as there are households. Here's that soundboard planning tool in action, if that is of interest to you. And you can see there are kind of island style with gaps in between. That's how ours is set up right now. There's a lot of cockpit style where the dog or cat kind of, or guinea pig kind of approaches cockpit. Obviously, you can do wall mount. One thing to think about and remember though, I mentioned it earlier, give them enough room to fully circle the board and enough room to watch you while they press. A lot of them like to make eye contact and they want to know that we're responding. So Sasha's done a great job of, even though this is a nice space-saving design tucked in the corner, there's still enough room for her dogs to get behind the board and press and watch her. right. We also have the Let's Get Them Pressing course. This is a 4-week cohort-based class that has live coaching as well as asynchronous materials. I contributed to the cat information in the course. The next one starts, I believe, next week. So very soon. There are a few spots left. There is 25% off with course 25. We'll add that to the chat for you all. It's taught by Diane of Neurodog Training, and Alexis with Bunny is also a guest instructor, and it is so much fun. That's a lot of the great topics that we cover. And then if anybody is realizing that you need more buttons or hex tiles or anything like that, we also have a 15% off coupon code that's good for the next 24 hours. Get that added to the chat right now for you too. Oop. I was trying to. There we go. And then if you have any feedback for us, we are always looking to improve. Put that in the chat as well. And thank you. All right. And so let's dive into any additional questions. And I know we're already a bit over today. You all have had fantastic questions already, and it's a big group. So I totally understand if you need to run. And again, you're always welcome at a future boot camp, or would love to have you at a mentorship call as well. But anybody who can hang out, happy to keep diving in and answering your questions here. Let's see. And so Katie asked, for people who travel with their pets, do you bring the buttons with you? And Calvin said, yes. We even have a soundboard carrier that FluentPet carries. But yeah, a lot of us travel with boards. I actually was putting the finishing touches on a travel board. Some people will just travel with a section of their existing board. For me, I've got a little camper that I'm planning on staying with the animals in over the summer for a bit. So we needed a smaller board because we've got 70 plus buttons spread out right now. So we've got 3 hex tiles, and I tried to pack them in for a little travel board. So it's up to you. So we're going to be learning that out in the camper versus, and for me, I tried to keep the key buttons that are coming to the travel board. I tried to keep them in the same location on the travel board as they are on the main board. But it's up to you. They can absolutely learn a different board or the same. My blind cat knew not only her countertop board that had kind of a kitty braille set up for her so that she could feel different textures, but she then taught herself the main dog board on the floor once she realized that the dogs had an outside button and she didn't. So then she got an outside button for her elevated board as well. Yeah, they don't have to have the board. My guys, at least my cats, seem to prefer it. They seem more willing to travel and settle faster when we get new places when they have a board to communicate. But it's not mandatory. That's part of why we always still listen to body language and honor that, even if we're not saying yes, or at least acknowledging, like, all right, I see that you're communicating. Allison said, I'm starting with 2 buttons, play and outside. I've had 1 accidental press so far outside.